Back to a very special edition of the AAU Overtime Podcast. Jordan DeLuciano here as always, and joining me to help recap the first season of the AAU College Hockey 2023 and now 2024 season, representing from the Hockey House Podcast. Welcome back to the pod, Mackenzie Murphy.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. Pumped to be here. Was excited going over the notes today and making sure we got everything covered. What an exciting start to the first edition of AAU College Hockey we have.
Yeah, we got to go through D1 through 3 and tackle the women's division as well. So we got a lot to recap for those that just follow their own team, may just follow their own conference, maybe a little bit of a slice into what's going on around AAU inside your own conference and out. Before we get into that, Murph, Hockey House Pod, you guys are all over the place throughout the first half of the season. What have you guys been up to in AAU specifically? I know just recently, and actually going on right now, you got a big vote going on right now between best jerseys in college hockey. And what else has a Hockey House been up to throughout the first half of the season?
Honestly, it's been a little quiet lately. Like you mentioned, we do our annual Jersey of the Year tournament. This is the third time we've done this and the second edition of this format. You know, when we first started doing it, like an easy way for us to gain popularity was we did a jersey bracket, and I can't even remember. I think we had like 100 and something teams in it. It was
we lost him a little bit there.
jerseys unveiled that we just made the tournament teams that unveiled jerseys in 2023, and South Carolina ended.
Murph, I'm gonna cut you off real quick here. You went in and out there, so we lost you right at the top of that. So if you don't mind, one more time. We lost you with audio, then you froze for a second.
Yeah, no, all good. Yeah, like I said, we have our annual Jersey of the Year tournament going on right now. We started this last year, only including jerseys that were.
Well, we were doing pretty good until we're Murph's going in and out over there, but yes, he is talking about the jersey vote that's happening right on the Hockey House Pod. We were doing so good when we were all fair talking notes. There was no issues with service or any quality, but right now Murph's going in and out over there on his end. So Murph, if you want, try again, just pick up where you left off, talk about that jersey vote that's happening right now. We'll try number 3 with this one. Hopefully the third time's the charm, but go ahead, carry on.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me now. Should I wave? Can you see me? Are we all good now?
The audio's good and the picture's good, but then once you start talking for a while, it's like it knows. It's like, all right, time to crap out now. And right now, as I'm saying it, he's frozen again, unfortunately. So Murph, here's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna send you out of the stream, and I'm gonna bring you back in. I'll cover for you while you're gone. So back out. I'm gonna invite you again, and while you're kicked out and come back in, I'll chew up some time. All right. So I'm gonna kick Murph. Everyone wave goodbye to Murph for the time being. I'm gonna get him back in here. So I'm gonna add a guest. I'm gonna copy that link. Hopefully the second time getting him in is the charm. But what he was talking about was the jersey vote. This is the third year that the Hockey House has done it. And we were talking off air. He'll speak more to it when I get him back in. The AAU jerseys that have been going up against each other in this Hockey House Jersey of the Year vote, they've been eating each other alive in these brackets. So whenever AAU jerseys go up against one another, they've been knocking each other out left and right. And it was tough for any AAU jerseys to make it to the finals because they've been so good this year. And Verbero has just making one after another. They've just been knocking each other out in these votes. And what we're going to talk about at the end of this episode is the Savannah Classic that's coming up, not this weekend, but the next weekend. And you're going to see those custom jerseys by Verbero on display. And Tennessee just revealed a brand new blue one that they'll be rocking in the tournament coming up in 2 weeks. So we got Murph back. Murph is back. I covered a little bit for you about the jersey vote. Mentioned Tennessee has a brand new jersey coming up in 2 weeks at the Savannah Classic. So if you want to pick off where you left off and kind of just recap Hockey House's idea behind this jersey vote.
Yeah, so what we do is we take every jersey that's been unveiled in the last year. So we saw it last year, South Carolina, their third jersey was very popular, the black one with the Cox script on the front. They ended up taking the tournament. This year, we upped it again. 32 of the best jerseys. We actually did we actually picked on the podcast live. We did a snake draft to decide who got into the tournament. And then we put our picks out there. We had people yell at us that we were wrong and we were missing jerseys. And then we added some more in and kind of did like a bonus round, which was great. So we had that. We had a lot of fun with that. We were talking before the show. Tampa was actually the most popular AAU team in the tournament. Their Gasparilla jerseys with the pirate ship on the front went as far as the Final Four, and they ran into some two hot teams with some passionate fans. And
lagging a little bit again, but yeah, no, that's what it really comes down to, though. Like, the jersey could be great, but if you run, like you said, the hot fan base, that fan base will drive their jersey into the finals. You see it when it comes to any fan vote, whether it be in baseball with the All-Star game, with the MLB All-Star game. You have a big fan base, the hot fan base, they'll drive their player, and in this example, they'll drive their jersey into the championship round. And unfortunately for Tampa, just missed out.
yeah, and like you said, Tennessee had some really cool jerseys. They'll be in next year's tournament. So we had a couple people a little disappointed that they didn't release them a little sooner, so they could be in the tournament. But
that Tennessee brand new one that I talked about right before Murph came on. Again, struggling with the connection, but we're going to try to power through here. The connection's in and out. I deleted all my running tabs. That might be it. So I'm at a loss, but we just got to try to truck through here with Murph in our first half recap show. Off to a bumpy start, but we're trying. We are trying here. So with that aside, let's get into what went on in the first half of the season. In the first year, as Murph mentioned before, under the AAU banner. And we'll kick it off with the women's division, brand new startup division, just getting its legs under. Not many teams, but these girls getting a brand new experience in the college hockey. And talking to some of these girls on the podcast, a situation they didn't even expect going to these schools, that they didn't expect there was a women's team there. Now there's brand new women's teams there. They're traveling all throughout the AAU. And Murph, it's a great experience for these young women, getting not just only on the ice, but going up against many different schools within the region.
yeah, and honestly, I think my Wi-Fi is like playing like a hockey player right now. It's taking shifts off. It's perfect. And then all of a sudden it looks like it heads to the bench and takes off. So the really cool thing about the women's side of the thing is I was talking to some Auburn players and some Georgia players before the season, and they were looking at Tampa's roster, and they couldn't believe the places that these girls had played before going to Tampa. And I think that was something that stood out to me, is that, we're at the point in the league where there's some scouting going on, and the girls are looking at the other rosters and seeing, who played where. And that's something that we've seen on the men's side for a long time. Like, oh, look at the recruits that this team got, and Tampa.
No, but Murph is right about that scouting all across the map, and that's only going to bring more eyes to the product now. First year to startup year, not, like I said, not a lot of teams, but these teams will be represented at nationals come this March. So these girls will get a great experience. And these girls all over the place, not just down south, they're coming from where their schools are and their universities are. They're coming from up north, all across the states here in AAU. And the scouting is going to be a big part in just taking this first year of the women's division here at AAU and growing it even further. And Murph, what we were talking about right before we went live, I was speaking with some of the women at on USF and one girls on Tampa. The Tampa, Laura McGregor said they played against some of the pro league down in Florida and some exhibition games just to get their toes wet before they even got some college experience. They were going up against a pro league down in Florida.
Yeah, that's really cool to see, and it's definitely paid off for Tampa. They seem like the clear-cut favorite on the women's side. You mentioned USF has given them a run for their money a couple times now, but certainly a team that we're going to be excited about watching, come national tournament time.
Yeah, so you got Tampa, USF, Georgia, Miami, who we're going to touch on in a little bit when it comes to their Division III team, South Carolina, Auburn, and then some teams representing the upstate collegiate hockey league for the women's division. Paul Smith's, whose men's program is doing very good, just like the women's, Union, Binghamton, and Springfield College to represent AAU women's division. First year, brand new starter up. It's only going to get bigger, as Murph mentioned before, bringing in talent from all across just represent some teams in the South as well as upstate. But now on to Division 3 in AAU, the men's division. I just teased about it. Murph, I'll let you take it away. The number 1 ranked Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, they've had a great year, and I think this is something that when AAU was kind of splitting up this offseason with the addition of Division 1 and teams were kind of finding their spot, Miami has clearly found their spot in AAU Division 3, and they've had some tough opponents to play. They split recently with Florida Southern, another good team that I think we expected to see at the top of AAU Division 3, but it's an exciting time for the Hurricanes fans, and they've been playing some great hockey heading into the break.
And they have 2 wins this year against Division II opponents, UCF and Lynn University as well. So they've dipped their toes, getting a little wet in higher level when it comes to Division II. They're one of 5 College Hockey South teams that represent the top 10 nationally ranked in Division III. And they had a good way to go into the break. They had 2 games in December. The most recent one, December 2nd, against the Mocs. Florida Southern shut them out 6-0. The Mocs were in the national tournament last year. And then kind of a nice one to pad the stats. December 1st against St. Leo University, 21-0 for Miami. So that's a nice result. Nice, like I said, a stat patter. But another team I'll let you touch upon is the number 7 ranked Florida Southern. And they've had 2 battles against Miami this year, the Mocs.
Yeah, and I think the Mocs actually caught Miami off guard in the first matchup. They won that one 6-5. You mentioned that in the most recent one, Miami ended up getting the win 6-0. But Florida Southern, they had a really good performance at Nationals last year. It was a team that I had never heard of them until, who are these? Who are the Mocs? Who are these guys flying around the ice against Farmingdale? I was up enjoying my dinner up in the goal line pub, and they played a really good game, a really fast game, and I think they surprised a lot of teams. They're not really surprising anybody anymore now because they're at the top of AAU D3.
And they might have arguably the most weight on their shoulders in Division 3 because, like we mentioned, they were in the national tournament last year. And like you just said, they made some noise against a team in Farmingdale, which was a heavy favorite. They wound up being runner-up last year to St. John Fisher at the time. It was Division 3, that Farmingdale team, now Division 2. But the Mocs might have the most weight on their shoulders. So now I go from a team in Florida Southern with a lot of weight on their shoulders to a team that came in with not many teams were looking at them, didn't have much expectations, but they've taken a Division 3 by storm. After a tough season last year, Stony Brook is ranked number 2. They have Division 2 wins. As a Division 3 team, they've knocked off Farmingdale's D2 team, not once but twice, as well as Sacred Heart. So Stony Brook, representing that Empire Conference, are handling business in D3, but have also dabbled in Division 2 opponents, knocking off 2 Empire Conference foes, like I mentioned, Farmingdale twice, that Division 2 team, and Sacred Heart. They got balanced scoring on that lineup. Not many guys that are going to light up the stat sheet, but just balance. That's what you're looking for, and it's led to a good start. They are 9-2-1 and number 2 in D3.
Yeah, I think Stony Brook too is, there's a lot of work that goes into putting these teams on the ice, especially if you're getting an AAU program started. And Stony Brook is a younger AAU program. And so I think, when the dust settles and you finally get everything on the ice and you can start focusing about, the hockey side of things, they've clearly taken advantage of that. And like you mentioned, they've gotten off to a really great start.
Tough year last year for them, but they have a very good hockey program, having a D1 club team for many, many years. And lastly, a team I want to touch upon, Murph, as anyone else, he can jump in. I'm looking at number 17 ranked Jefferson Community College. They have the leading scorer right now in Division 3 and one of the leading scorers altogether in AAU. A man I had on the podcast, Zachary Blevins, 65 points in 13 games this year. Started 7-3, but a tough finish to the first half. They have lost 3 straight to finish out the season. But a team I like to keep an eye on is Jefferson Community College. They're 7-6 right now after dropping the last 3. Hobart, brand new team. They're going to get more exposure next season as Hobart has a Division 3 NCAA team, the reigning NCAA D3 national champions. And Hobart, we're going to see a lot more of next year. Hobart took it to Jefferson Community College 12-3, and then JCC lost back-to-back on the 9th and 10 to Canisius to end the first half. But Murph, anyone else you want to go about, touch upon in Division 3 before we move on to D2?
No, I just think the Jefferson Community College is, again, like that is what makes club hockey so entertaining at times because you could find that spark plug that gets your lineup going. And I loved that interview, and I had no idea about Jefferson Community College. And now they're lighting it up. You mentioned they've kind of hit a cold streak here, but anytime you get a hockey.
We were doing so good. We were doing so good. And then we lost Murph for a little bit on that one. Talking about Murph, you're doing good. And then we lost you for a split second there talking about Jefferson Community College. But like you mentioned, one of those unknown schools that has came out of nowhere in a very good way. Like they were a top ranked team for a while, but that tough end to the season not end of the season, should I say, end of the first half has kind of knocked them down a peg. That's why they sit outside of the top 10 at number 17. But now from D3 on to Division 2 now, a team that is running away with that top ranked, not only top ranked in D2 as number 1, but they can easily be a contender in Division 1. But right now their D2 team, Murph, is FAU.
Yeah, I really like them. I mentioned they've kind of been on cruise control since the battle at the beach, which seems like so long ago back in that first weekend in November. They took care of business with a victory over UCF, and then they finished off the semester with 2 more wins against UCF. So I think for them, it'll be rest over rust, to start the semester. They haven't played in a while here. So looking at, doing the simple things right, and then they have a very skilled team. So once they do the simple things right, they're going to look for that firepower on offense.
And they got 2 of their returning players that have been there for a long time, Matthias Weir and David Israel on the back end. Freshman Caleb Owens has come on strong. Believe he's second on the team in scoring. But right off the bat, they got a home weekend set against Division One opponent in Farmingdale. So both teams immediately, their first 2 matchups of the second half in January, I believe that's next weekend. They got it. It's a tough stretch right off the bat. Farmingdale's got to go down south, play the best team in D2, and FAU's got to welcome a top 5 team in Division 1 in Farmingdale. So that's going to be a good one to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And as you know as well as I do, the weather starts to get a little chillier here in the Northeast. So anytime those teams get a trip down to Florida this time of year, I'm sure the guys on Farmingdale are looking forward to that one. But, it is going to be a tough test against a tough FAU team.
Another team I have an eye out for. They'll be represented in the Savannah Classic coming up in 2 weekends. Is a team we talked about. Their brand new jerseys, Tennessee, number 5 ranked, and they have 2 big wins this year against Division 1 opponents, Alabama and Georgia, a Georgia team that they'll be seeing.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes the Savannah Classic so good is you get, now that these teams are in different divisions, we get that crossover that a lot of people are looking forward to, and they love the big rivalry matchups down there, so it'll be really great. But Tennessee has played some really good hockey. I talked about it earlier, like finding your mix. They seem to be in the right level right now in AAU D2, and they're doing really well. And I know their D3 team is also doing well. We forgot to talk about them too. So the whole the whole program is doing very well at Tennessee, and a lot of things to be excited about.
Yeah, D3 team is top 10 in Division 3, and that D2 team is number 5 in D2. Any other teams that you want to touch upon? I'll let you take the ball here on Division 2. Maybe some teams outside the CHS. Is there another one inside the CHS you want to hit before we go outside the region?
Yeah, the other one I had was Florida, and I think the first time I talked to Kyle Nell about Florida and the Savannah Classic, he talked about how tough of a hockey team they are to play against, and they just make the other team's life miserable every night. And I got to see that when we went down to Daytona and they played Embry-Riddle. I don't think Embry-Riddle has had the year that they thought they were going to have after the start they had, but Florida's a team I'm looking forward to seeing. And then outside of CHS, it's a team that I honestly have.
We lost him right as he was about to reveal what team he was going. One more time, what's the team you were going to mention? We lost you right as you were about to say the team outside the CHS.
Is disappearing at the top here. Liberty, though, a team that did very well in the D2 tournament last year, and they were in that pool of death with Fordham and South Carolina and Alabama. They're 5-4 right now. They're 2-2 against Penn State Harrisburg, which is another very tough team. But I would keep an eye on the Flames in the second semester because they always seem to make a push around national tournament time.
Yeah, that Liberty hockey program in general is very, very deep. Liberty has a very good hockey program. They were in back the CHF Federation Cup 2 years ago, and then AAU National Tournament the first year of the AAU National Tournament. They were in both of them, and they were considered a team to watch in both the last two national tournaments, whatever you want to call them. And they're making some noise again. Liberty, they're ranked number 3. Not a lot of games played this year, but they are ranked number 3. And a team you mentioned, Murph, just now is Penn State Harrisburg. Both Harrisburg number 7. They did lose their leading scorer Cam Moore. He's been leading the team the past 2 seasons. He was their best player, but they are 2-2 against Liberty, 1-1 against High Point. High Point, the number 4 team, and Penn State Harrisburg, another team like Liberty that has back-to-back representation in the AAU Nationals. We're powering through here with this Murph's connection over there. You know, it's a tough go right now. But I was going to touch upon High Point. They got their leading scorer again in Nick Sasso, 27 points in 15 games. They're ranked number 4. Murph, anyone else you want to keep an eye on? You mentioned Liberty. We talked about Tennessee.
No, I had High Point on my radar too, and they played a tough schedule to start the year, and they did very well, and they had a lot of experience from last year's tournament. They were a younger team at the AAU National Championships last year, and so I think they're looking forward to getting back there, and they're hungry this time around.
And before we move on to Division One, 2 teams that could have played D1 this year, wind up staying in D2, kind of taking a step back was Bishops losing some of that offensive firepower, and Babson losing their go-to goaltender and Tim Carpenter, and then losing that depth. Babson and Bishops have struggled a little bit this season. 2 teams that were very good last year.
Yeah, and I've watched a couple of the Bishops games. I think I've seen more of Babson play, and you hit the nail on the head there. Just missing that depth part that we're so used to seeing in the national tournament the past 2 years, especially when they went on that run. It felt like every line was just as good as the one before them. So that's something they're missing and something they're looking to build on in the second half.
So now from D2, finally, last but not least, we'll go to Division 1 in AAU, and leading the charge. They were sitting in the top 3 for most of the year. They've only lost 1 game all season, and they had an impressive showing at the end of the season when Tampa came to town and played some hockey against the Upstate Conference. Niagara knocked them off in overtime, as Niagara currently sits 15-1, the number 1 ranked team in Division 1.
Yeah, I think they must have heard us last time we talked. I feel like we talked a lot about the teams down south and the teams up north. Maybe getting a little sick and tired of the attention that those teams are getting.
Yeah.
And they gave it to Tampa when Tampa came up north. They lost to Niagara on the first night, got a big win against St. Bonaventure the next night, a 7-1 win, handing the Bonnies their first loss. And then Buffalo surprised them to end the 3-game road trip with a 6-4 win. Just goes to show we love these crossover games where the conferences make the trip up north or they make the trip down south, because it tells us a little bit more about the quality of the top teams at the top of AAU.
That was a weird one. Like Tampa drops to Buffalo, they dropped to Niagara, but then they pounded at the time the number 1 ranked Bonnies to give Bonnies their first loss in the season. I believe that was 7-1. So that one came out of nowhere. As Bonnies now, I believe they got knocked down to ranked number 3, and Tampa's right behind them. So hey, you never know. A lot of parity.
Yeah, and that's what we love to see, and it's exciting. I was looking at those teams in New York, like they're playing Cornell, Cortland. They're all playing each other in the second half here, so there's going to get a lot of familiarity in the second half here before they head to nationals.
And quickly back to this Niagara team. They're a team, they can blow you out, but if they need to win a close game, they can. They have. I have to count on 2 hands the amount of shutouts they've had this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shutouts this year. And they also have 3 games in which they've only allowed 1 goal. So Niagara, there's a reason why they're ranked number 1. Can score at will, but if they have an off day scoring, it's okay. They're not giving up anything.
Yeah, and it's a Niagara team that they had a lot of skill when I got to see them play in person, and just a really good hockey team. I almost think Niagara is kind of in that category of Liberty, where it seems like all of their hockey teams on campus play the same way, and you kind of expect that. And so it's something to watch. The Purple Eagles, I think they were maybe a disappointed last year at the result they had at the end of the season, and they're looking to make some noise here.
Yeah, they wound up losing to Fairfield, I believe, last year in the semifinals. Fairfield would eventually be the runner-up to the defending champion. So I'll touch upon briefly 12-2, right back in the thick of things. Binghamton, they lost a couple of key forwards, but they have not, and their goaltender from last year in Bloodgood, but it has not mattered at all. They are 12-2. One of those losses I saw firsthand when they came to the island. They beat Farmingdale in a close 1-3-2 on a late power play goal in the third. But then the next night, the Rams knocked off the Bearcats 5-2. But other than that, they have been, once again, despite the losses up front, they've been a very strong program, as we'll get Murph back in here after a little bit. Still, we're fighting through the connection. But Binghamton, Murph, again, losing some guys up front, losing their goaltender for the past 2 years, but it hasn't mattered. They're ranked number 2. Binghamton, once again, very strong.
Yeah, they've got some secret sauce in Binghamton, and I'm trying to figure out what it is because every year we get the same Binghamton team, and they are just as tough to play against. I think they really wear teams down, and they don't get pushed over a lot. They rarely make mistakes, and they almost end up making the other team make the mistakes. We saw that last year when they spoiled the party for Tampa. So they're picking up right where they left off, and I think they're trying to make a stab at this first Division I AAU title.
Team, I'll take one. If you got one as well, you could jump in right after. But a team that I'm going to keep my eye out for, that you look at the record, and perhaps if you look at the rankings, it might not light up the screen, but a team that had a very rough start to the season. I believe they were 0-6 at one point, and that started all their games on the road for the most part, is Fairfield. As we lose Murph again, the connection really, we're fighting through it, but we're trying here. We've gotten some input from him, but he's back in. Let's see if we can get him back in. It's been a struggle today, Murph. It's been a struggle.
Yeah, credit to you. You're hosting the show and you're kicking me out and pulling me back in. So you're doing everything. You're like an octopus. I can only see 2 arms for you, but you must have 8 back there controlling the show.
The show goes on. You can't stop. You can't miss a beat. You got to just keep going. It's live TV pretty much. You know, you can't stop. But I was mentioning a team to keep an eye out for, despite the record, is Fairfield. They're 7-7, and I think they started 0-5 or 0-6. So the fact they're 7-7 after an 0 start, they had a rough stretch against some of the top teams in AAU, all on the road for the most part. I'd keep my eye out for Fairfield. They did lose their top 2 scorers in Piticelli and Spaziante, but other than that, everyone's back. They have replaced 2 of them with 2 very good bodies as well, Brazel and I'm forgetting the other one. I'm going to look up his name right now because I want to give him his respect. But as I look up that man's name, to help Fairfield's resurgence, Murph, anyone else that you have your eye on that maybe the record doesn't jump off the screen?
No, I honestly, we talked about it too. Maybe a team that got a lot of attention last year and didn't get off to a great start is South Carolina. They're a team to watch out for. Another team down south that I think has had a tough year is Georgia. They're waiting for that new rink to be built, and they're playing, pretty much the whole season on the road at this point. They're the road dogs. They were traveling all over Georgia, playing at different rinks the first half. Now they're back. They're playing at the Classic Center, so they'll play a couple outdoor games. They had one against Bama get canceled before the start of before the end of the semester. But those are 2 teams down south that that come to mind for me. But like you mentioned, it feels like the top dogs in this league are up north in the New York area.
Yep. 1, 2, and 3. Niagara, Bing, and Bonnie's. That's your top 3 right now, all representing the upstate. But yes, Georgia wound up coming to the island. Georgia tied and then took one against Farmingdale. They also had a matchup against Quinnipiac. The 2 names I wanted to give credit to on Fairfield, Robert Scharfstein and Aiden Brazel, 2 of the new faces on the Stags that have helped replace the offensive output of not Malalepsi. That's a forward on the team in Piticelli and Spaziante. I'll touch upon a team that I call the games for in Farmingdale. They have great 2-headed monster in net and DeCanio and in Jake Temkin. And they're also getting reinforcements, 3 new faces, 2 on the front end, 1 on the back end. So Farmingdale, a very strong team, ranked number 5, and they're only going to get better with 3 new bodies to help them in their second half push.
Yeah, and I think Farmingdale is a team with a lot of depth, right? And that that helps you out in the second half of the season. You see it all the time. A team like Fairfield, if they get some injuries, like what does that look like? Maybe that's why they got off to that tough start. But when everybody is healthy, that's when you play your best hockey. And so a team like Farmingdale, sorry, they have so many guys and so many, depth guys that might give them an advantage to kind of make a jump on some of these teams ahead of them in the ranking in the second half.
Yes, and then a team that Farmingdale wound up playing, it was a battle this game. And I think anytime you go up against University at Buffalo, it's just going to be, they're just going to grind you down. That game against Farmingdale was, like I said, an absolute battle, and they wind up beating Tampa, as Murph mentioned before. They knocked them off 6-4, but then wound up losing that final game of the semester 4-1 to Niagara. But Buffalo, right there, you can't leave out Buffalo when talking about the upstate teams. They are very strong as well, and they'll battle one of those top 3 teams all year long.
Yeah, they play kind of a run and gun style of game, and it's almost reminiscent of like the high school hockey out there in Western New York. It's high flying, it's skilled, and then those guys can also hit too. They are another tough team to play against, so no surprise that Farmingdale had their hands full with those guys.
And to wrap things up here, we're going to do a little bit of talking down the line, not this weekend coming up in a couple days, but Martin Luther King weekend this following week in January will be once again the Savannah Classic in Georgia. You got Florida, you got Georgia Tech, you got Tennessee, and you got the Bulldogs, the Georgia Bulldogs as well there. I will be there, and so will the Hockey House. So Murph, what are you guys doing in Savannah next week? What are you guys going to be doing up and about the area?
Yeah, I mean, we're just taking in the action, and we're going to try to capture as much of the action as we can and use our platform to show people, hey, like this is college hockey in the South, and there's thousands of people here on a Friday and Saturday night to see some of the best teams, some of the biggest universities, some of the biggest brands in college athletics go toe-to-toe on the ice. So we're going to try to capture all the action. We're going to, live tweet the game, live updates on our Instagram story, and get a little behind the scenes action. The mascots, the Georgia Tech, they've got the Rambling Wreck, the jerseys too. We saw Tennessee come out with theirs. I know Verbero does a great job hooking the teams up with swag for this tournament. So we're just there to capture it all and show, 18, 19-year-old kids interested in playing college hockey. Hey, this is an option for you. Look at this place that you can go play.
And it will all kick off Friday night, January 12th, 6 p.m. start, Florida against Tennessee, 8:30, Georgia Tech. And then the winners of those respective games will face off in the championship game Saturday night, January 13th, 8:30. But right before that, it will be the third place game, 5:30. So the losers of Friday will battle it out Saturday night for some pride and try to get some bragging rights in that final third place game right before the championship game at 8:30. So Murph, we powered through this one despite the lag and the connections. We got through all the divisions. We plugged the tournament next weekend. So Murph, I appreciate you being a trooper, getting through all those issues on and off, in and out, and giving your thoughts on the first half.
Well, hey, Jordan, make sure you give yourself a pat on the back. I'd say you were probably the first and the second star of this show tonight. So thank you for all you do for the AAU, and looking forward to catching up with you in Savannah.
Yes, Murph and the Hockey House. We'll see you all next weekend in Savannah. So alongside Mackenzie Murphy representing the Hockey House pod, my name is Jordan DeLuciano of the AAU Overtime Podcast. We got through it. Problems and all, technical difficulties and all. We finally got to the finish line. We will see you all next week in Savannah for the Savannah Classic.